Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to Saxoft Limited Q4 FY21 earnings conference call. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star, then 0 on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Diwakar Pingle from Christensen IR. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Thanks, Steve. Good morning to all participants in this call. Warm welcome and welcome to the Q4 and full year FY21 earnings call of Saxoft Limited. The results and investor presentation have been mailed to you and is also available on our website at www.saxoft.com. In case anyone does not have a copy of the press release and the presentation, please do write to us and we'll be happy to send the same to you. To take us through the results today and answer your questions, we have with us the top management of the company, represented by Aditya Krishna, Chairman and Managing Director, and Neeraj Ganeriwal, Chief Operating Officer and the Chief Finance Officer. Aditya will start the call with a brief overview of the quarter and the year gone by, which will be then followed by Neeraj giving a detailed highlights of the financials for the full year. We will then open the floor for the Q&A session. I would like to remind you that anything that is said in this call, which gives any outlook for the future or which can be construed as a forward-looking statement, must be viewed in conjunction with risks and uncertainties that we face. These risks and uncertainties are included but not limited to what we mentioned in the prospectus filed with SEBI and the subsequent annual reports you'll find on the website. With that introduction, I'll now hand over the call to Aditya. Over to you, Aditya.
Thank you, Diwakar. Hello and good morning, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. At the outset, I trust all of you along with your families are safe. While in the first wave, we heard of fatalities from afar, the second wave seems to have impacted us much closer. I don't think there's even a single family that has not felt the pain of this pandemic. Saxoft as a company has kept health and wellness of the employees paramount, and we still continue to work from home as we deal with the pandemic. As an industry, we are very fortunate. In fact, I would say we are blessed that we can actually work from home. There are many organizations where working from home is not possible, and employees are at considerable risk to go to work every day. Vaccination is probably the only key weapon and only real weapon that we have with us to fight this disease, and I would urge all of you to get yourself vaccinated at the first available opportunity. We have initiated the vaccination drive for all our employees and their families. You would be also pleased to know that we have decided to continue paying salaries for all of our colleagues that we have lost in this pandemic indefinitely till we can stabilize their families. I'm sure a lot of you are regular listeners to our earnings calls, but I would like to take this opportunity to introduce Saxoft to some of our new investors who may have logged on to this call. Saxoft is a digital transformation partner that helps our clients automate, modernize, and manage IT systems through a combination of domain-specific technology solutions and solution accelerators from consulting to support. We have been in business for a little over 2 decades now, with offices across 14 locations covering USA, UK, Asia Pacific, and Europe, and an associate strength of over 1,250. The key verticals that are our focus include fintech, transportation and logistics, retail and e-commerce, and healthcare. The interconnected nature of the verticals allows us to cross-sell and upsell service offerings to our clients, and we believe that the target addressable market in the said verticals will only grow in the future, and we are uniquely positioned to address the same. Telecommunications and public sector are the other verticals where Saxoft has been at the forefront of some transformative and cutting-edge solutions to our partners. The verticals are supported by horizontal service offerings spanning analytics, cloud solutions, legacy modernization, testing, and application development. Our offerings are predominantly in the Americas at 47% of our revenue, Europe contributing 31%, and the balance in Asia Pacific and other geographies. Saxoft has used a string of pearl strategy in the past to grow with some tuck-in acquisitions that have enabled us to add to our service offerings. We will continue with this strategy in the future too if we come across any opportunities that would fit Saxoft's business model. While Neeraj will delve into the detailed financials, I would like to say that Saxoft has been consistent with its performance, and our focus on cost efficiency and optimization has ensured that our profitability margins have seen an increase over the years. This has translated into a healthy cash flow. Our dividend record over the last 5 years is a testament to our policy of rewarding the shareholders. I'm pleased to announce that the company has declared a final dividend of rupees 2.5 per share. That's 25% on equity shares of rupees 10 each for FY21. This, along with the interim dividend, will add up to rupees 5 per share for the full year. That is 50%. Where do we go from here is the question in everyone's mind. Is there a space for another mid-tier IT company to hold its own against the large players? We believe in this age where change is a constant, there is definitely an opportunity for companies like us. A few factors that could play for us include Saxoft's focus on emerging sectors, namely fintech, transportation logistics, retail and e-commerce, and healthcare, which are definitely the verticals of the future. Number two, being nimble and agile is a feature that has won us a lot of business and will continue to do so. Thirdly, our inch-wide, mile-deep strategy, where we focus on niche verticals and offerings, is one another reason which we believe will win us profitable business. Fourthly, Saxoft is consolidating its front end to ensure that we have more hunters that can source opportunities for us. We realize that we have not grown as fast as we should have, and this is an area of focus for us. Lastly, focus on acquisitions will continue, and our track record of successful integration of over 5 acquisitions gives us confidence to go down this path with ease. As I conclude, I would like to say that FY21 has been a rather unique year in our history as we battled a pandemic that not only disrupted businesses across the world, but left a lot of mental and physical scars around countless people. Despite the headwinds, we believe resilience is at the core of our existence. And it is my earnest belief that with the commitment and support of the entire fraternity at Saxoft and our esteemed shareholders, we will be able to charter a growth path in the current fiscal. I would now like to hand over the floor to Neeraj to take us through the financials.
Thank you, Aditya. We will now go over the financial performance for quarter 4 and FY21. First, on the revenue side, quarter 4 FY21 revenues are at INR 97.45 crores, vis-a-vis INR 92.9 crores in the quarter 4 FY20, which is a growth of 4% on a year-on-year basis and a flat quarter-on-quarter basis. The FY21 revenues are at INR 385.81 crores, vis-a-vis 358.78 crores in FY20, registering a growth of 7.5%. If we now look at the EBITDA, the quarter 4 FY21 EBITDA is at 15.55 crores versus INR 13.85 crores in quarter 4 FY20, which is a growth of 12.3% year-on-year and a degrowth of around 11.2% from the previous quarter. The quarter 4 FY21 EBITDA margin is at 16% as against 14.9% in quarter 4 FY20 and 18% in quarter 3 FY21. The full year FY21 EBITDA stood at INR 64.42 crores as against INR 61.03 crores in FY20, with the margin at 16.7% versus 17% in the last year. Despite the challenging environment, the margins of the company have been stable as a result of strengthening of our niche capabilities in the selling industry verticals. Now taking you through the profit after tax. The quarter 4 FY21 profit after tax is INR 12.51 crores as against INR 9.80 crores in Q4 FY20, which is a growth of 27.7% year on year and a growth of 3.6% on a quarter-on-quarter basis. The full year FY21 PAT stood at INR 45.44 crores as against INR 38.
Participants are requested to please stay connected while we reconnect Mr. Ganeriwal. Mr. Ganeriwal?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
You may proceed.
From which part did I drop off, any idea?
Just 5 seconds back, sir.
Okay. Neeraj, you were at FY21 PAT.
Okay. Sorry. Coming to profit after tax, the Q4 FY21 PAT is at INR 12.51 crores versus INR 9.8 crores in quarter 4 FY20, a growth of 27.7% year on year and 3.6% growth on a quarter-on-quarter basis. The full year FY21 PAT is at rupees 45.44 crores versus INR 38.65 crores in FY20, which is a growth of 17.6% over the previous year. The decrease in finance costs for FY21 led to a further improvement in net profit. This has resulted in our earnings per share being at rupees 45.68 during FY21 versus 38.67 per share in FY20. This is an increase of 18% in the EPS on a year-on-year basis. The impact of currency movement on our revenues for the current year is about 3%. Based on this, the pure volume-driven growth in revenues is about 4.5% as compared to the previous year. Now taking you through the revenue split by geography. Americas contributed about 47% of our revenues. Europe contributed around 31%, while the remaining 22% came from Asia Pacific and other regions. In terms of mix of revenues between on-site and offshore, the on-site and offshore revenue mix is 48% on-site and 52% offshore for the full year. We do expect this mix to be inclined towards the offshore in the longer term. The revenue split across verticals is as follows. Fintech and telecom contributed about 27% and 23% respectively, while transportation and logistics, retail, healthcare, and public sector contributed 9%, 11%, and 10% respectively. Now taking you through the customer metrics. Saxoft has about 6 customers of $1 million plus segment and 9 customers who are in the USD 0.5 million plus segment as of financial year 2021. The total employee count stands at 1,260, out of which 1,127 are technical and the remaining 133 are support staff. The utilization level of employees, excluding trainees, stands at 82% for the full year FY21. Moving to the balance sheet, as of 31st March 2021, our debt position stood at INR 26.5 crores and cash position stood at approximately INR 90 crores, which makes us a net cash company. The improvement in cash position was mainly led by the improved EBITDA and margins, greater focus on the data collection, resulting in better AR collection period, and cost efficiency. For FY21, our return on equity stood at 17.5% and the return on capital employed stood at 22.1%. This concludes the update on the financials, and we will now open the discussion for Q&A.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Vaibhav Barjatia from HNI Investment. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Thanks for providing the opportunity. So if I look at your revenue growth build-up and try to look at vertical and client-wise everything, so it seems to me that it is largely coming again from telecom vertical in Europe. And if I also look at your top 5 clients, they have their proportion has declined. So does it mean that we have added more clients, telecom clients in European market, and that is what is providing us growth during the year?
Vaibhav, that's actually not correct. What has happened is that last year has been a very challenging year to add clients because of the pandemic. Our sales team has not been able to do any face-to-face meetings with prospects. So the growth has mainly come from growing existing customers and growing our share of business with these customers. So the growth in telecom that you are referring to is actually the revenue from our top telecom client has increased. So that's what's happened. We have added some customers, but the growth has been not as much as we would have expected because of the pandemic.
Okay. So it means that then non-telecom top 4 clients have declined. That's what it means. If telecom has grown that much, I think around 20%, 24% growth is there in telecom vertical, where the top client has grown, and the rest of the clients must have declined.
Some of our top fintech client declined because they started a captive in India.
That
some
you
of
mentioned.
the business moved. So that it's a long tail. So that continues. To, if I can use the word, torment us. But it's been over the hump.
Okay. And secondly, you mentioned about consolidating the front end. Can you elaborate more on that? What exactly you are doing and how it will impact either on the revenue or on the cost? What exactly you are doing when you say consolidating the front end?
If you compare our business and our company to any large IT player in the industry, you will see that in most of the metrics, utilization, on-site offshore mix, we are very comparable. Return on capital, return on equity, we're very comfortable. The only place where we are lagging is revenue growth, top line growth. Now, if that is something that we can overcome, and believe me, there is a lot of focus on that to overcome that. And 8% is not a great growth by any standards, and we are not happy with it. So if we can just get over this growth issue, then there is nothing which will stop us from, really leapfrogging our numbers. Unfortunately, the pandemic, the situation, the size of the business, it makes it difficult for us to grow business. And if you would have, you're a regular participant to our calls, and you would have seen that every time this question comes up and I answer it by saying we are continuing to focus on it. But I have to say, Vaibhav, there is no silver bullet. There is no magic wand. It will require a lot of effort. We are making progress. The progress will be small, but you can see over the years the progress has been there and it's been consistent.
Hmm.
We are hoping we can accelerate that.
Right. Right. So does it mean that you are kind of reorganizing your front end or reducing it, or you are hiring more? I mean, that's what I meant to say. When what does it mean consolidating front end? What exactly you are doing in the front end?
What we're doing when we say front end, it's the sales engine. So we are
Yeah.
continuing to invest in the sales engine. We're not going to reduce spend in the sales engine because revenue growth will come from the sales engine. So we will continue to spend sales engine, use the optimal mix of on-site sales and offshore sales to try and get more business into the company, more new customers into the company. That's really what it means.
So you will be hiring more people, or it is just some realignment of the
We will definitely hire more sales people. We are continuing to do that every year. The only thing is because of the costs, we have to sort of stagger the costs in line with revenue growth. So we can't obviously hire too many at one go because it will have an impact on the quarterly numbers. So we have to be careful.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That's it from my side. I will come back in the question queue. Thank you.
Thank you, Vaibhav.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Sunny Ahuja, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Hello, sir. Actually, you had alluded in the previous con call also that, you were looking at the overall liquidity situation in terms of, the number of shares, the free float of the shares. So any particular strategy or, something that we can expect in terms of boosting the overall liquidity or the number of shares that are there in the market, to probably attract maybe slightly bigger investors in the company? Thank you.
Sunny, one of the things that we are doing is, you would have noticed that, as part of our shareholding, we have about 5% of our shareholding in the ESOP trust. That's about 5 lakh shares. Now, the ESOP trust was formed at a time when the company was formed, and over the years, the relevance of that has been lost, and it is no longer classified as promoter shareholding; it's classified as other shareholding. So, what we would like to do is, with the proper governance and the proper approvals, we would like to, over time, offer that in the market. And the plan is that a part of that will be bought by the promoters, and the balance, depending on the interest, will be sold in the market. So that hopefully will bring some more floating stock to the into the market. Sunny, does that answer your question?
Mr. Ahuja, you have any more questions?
Yeah, actually that does. So again, just a follow-up question on that. When you say a part of it will be bought by the promoters, are you alluding to some kind of a buyback, or or would it be like a in-market purchase, or can you just elaborate on that a little bit more?
Neeraj, you want to just clarify this, please?
Yes, thank you. So, Sunny, we are not alluding on any buyback as such. Anything which would be done would be with proper governance and approval, and any transaction would be done at market price and at the counter.
Okay, sir. Understood. Thanks for answering the question. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Amit Jain from Monarch Networth Capital. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Aditya and Amit. So most of the questions are centered around growth only, growth challenges this company is facing. I think you have answered to the previous caller. But still, I would like you to the challenges that is being faced by the company. And you mentioned about the course correction. I think that was reference. I was reading your annual report. you mentioned about that course correction. So if you can just throw some light on that, so what exactly company is doing to meet that. And something on the employee, because the employee count remains the same. So that is something, and about the attrition rate. And I was somewhat concerned about the client concentration rate. It's still the company deriving 40% of its revenue from top 5 clients, is likely from the higher side. And going forward, are you seeing some change in the offshore mix? Maybe offshore mix is going to rise. Sorry if I have one more question on the line of so that company share from the digital and future technology. So that is something I couldn't find. So if you can just share that details also, how much companies deriving from the digital. Thank you.
So Amit, let me address the growth part first. The growth is our biggest challenge. If we were growing at 25% year on year, we would be in a different space in terms of our stock. You've seen our stock. We are at an earnings per share of 45 rupees. We are roughly about 10, 11 price earnings. Industry is at 25 to 30. Now, if we can solve our growth problem, and it's not an easy problem, but given the long, the tenor of the company, the foundation that we have built, the management team we have in place, I'm very confident that we will solve this problem. It will not happen overnight, but it will get solved, and that's the opportunity. If we can solve this growth problem, then we get into a different league and a different orbit, and that's the goal. Now, how are we going to do it? We're going to do it with the same building blocks that I have, over the years, highlighted. The inch wide, mile deep strategy. Focus on certain verticals. Focus on select geographies. So, a company of our size can't do everything for anybody. It has to be focused. It has to be niche driven, and that is what is allowing us to keep our profitability and our margins at the level where it is. Now, when we do that, we sacrifice growth, obviously, because you're now working or getting new business and additional business in a smaller target market than the universe. So growth is a challenge. Having said that, if you notice the previous year, and I'm talking FY20, we were flat. This year we have grown 8%. Now 8% is not a great number, but considering what happened last year, it's not bad. We are hopeful that this year we'll beat that, and so on, with each year. And like I mentioned earlier, there's no silver bullet. We have to work at it. We have to plod at it. We have to push at it, and only then it will happen. Okay. Now you asked a number of questions, so I hope I remember most of them. Regarding the on-site offshore mix, we're at 48-52. We will push more towards offshore, but it's going to be a tough grind again because 48-52 is pretty much better than industry standard. Maybe we can get it to 47-53 or something like that, but it's not going to be very significant. Yeah. What else, Neeraj? What else did I miss? Would you like to pick it up?
Yes, I do. I think one of the questions, Amit, you had asked was on the employee costs and the count. The employee cost being stable. During the previous year, which is the FY 2021, we are talking about, yes, the employee costs have been stable because, in the pandemic situation and with everyone working from home, we were trying to manage our resources effectively. And rather than doing tremendous increase in the headcount, we have worked with more of the freelancers and the subcontracting and the contracting market, trying to get people who are available for short-term basis, which is where you will see that the support and third-party charges line, that cost element has gone up vis-a-vis the employee cost line. Other than that, I think on the attrition, as I mentioned, we are at 82%. We've been maintaining that for quite some time. And I think those were the questions.
You're talking about utilization. So I asked about the employee count remaining same, not about the employee cost. So we have not grown in terms of employee strength. And second is on the attrition, because we have mentioned about the utilization, but there is no mention of attrition. I couldn't find that detail. So what is the attrition rate? So these are the two questions on the employee front. There is another question on the client concentration rate. So I still want something that, because this is something slightly discomforting that company. I can understand a company of size obviously has that, but like if we are working on that one. And third question is on the digital technologies and emerging technologies. The company shares to what exactly, how much share is in the overall revenue basket from these technologies.
Neeraj, I'll take it.
Sure.
On the attrition side, Amit, we are tracking at about anywhere between 22 to 24% per annum attrition, which is pretty much where the industry is at. Now, regarding the concentration of clients, yes, that is an issue, but it's an issue which will go away as we grow. It is not an area of focus for us because wherever I can get revenue today, I want to get revenue, even if it is from my largest customer. Okay. Now, the fact that the largest customer is working with us means we are bringing some value to that customer. So I'm not really concerned. I think it's a thing to keep in mind, but it's not something that will is critical for us. Growth at any cost is critical for us.
And I think the last thing on the digital.
Yes. In terms of digital, see, most of our business, I would say at least 80 to 85% of our business is digital. We are only in the new technologies. We are not in the, so much in the run the business. We are mostly in the change the business technology. So I would say almost 80 to 85% of our revenues are digital. So because what is digital? It's a very loosely used word. Everybody, because of the pandemic, everybody's looking at digital. But what does digital really mean? I think digital, to me, the simplest definition is something that can allow a company or a business to operate with the absence of paper. Now, most technology allows you to do that. So using that terminology and definition, I would say 80 to 85% of our revenues are digital.
Thank you, Aditya. I would like to
welcome, Aditya.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of VP Rajesh from Banyan Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for the opportunity. Hi, Aditya. So I'm new to the company, so my questions may be a little basic in some respects. So first thing on the dividend side, what is your capital allocation policy? Because with 90 crores of cash, 5 rupees per share seems a very small amount. And so yeah, that's the first question.
I know it's a small amount, Rajesh, but we need to keep the money to, grow the business. And we're always looking for opportunities to acquire businesses. And, so it's a tough balance, between rewarding shareholders via dividend and also, growing the business. So I know more is better. But, consistently we have been increasing dividends. Last year it was 45%, which was 4.5 rupees a share. This year it's going to be 5 rupees a share. And hopefully, the trend will continue. And you would have seen our share price between last March or last April and this March. So I think shareholders have had a good run, and dividend is one part of it.
Right. Okay. Second question on the business side, your BFSI revenues. I'm just wondering if you are 80-85% digital, and that particular vertical seems to be going for most of the IT companies out there. What was peculiar about our business group?
Could you just repeat that question, Rajesh?
Yeah. So if I look at your contribution from the BFSI vertical, it seems to have degrown. Whereas, most of the other IT companies are growing in that particular vertical on the digital side. And I heard you say that 80-85% of your business is digital. So I'm just wondering, why did we degrow in that particular vertical?
Okay. I think it's important to clarify, Rajesh, that for us, there is no BFSI. It's tech. So we don't work for the large banks. So we don't work for the JP Morgans. We don't work for the Citibanks. We work for companies which are fintech. So companies which are in the compliance space with a product for anti-money laundering. Companies which are in the credit management space. Companies that are in the identity theft business. Those are companies which are in the payment business. For example, cashless card withdrawal applications. Those are the places where we work. And that we term as fintech. So, and all that business is digital. There is nothing which is non-digital, if I was to use the earlier definition of digital. So please keep that in mind when you compare us with companies which are focusing on the BFSI domain.
Okay. So thanks for the clarification. But why did we degrow in that business? Because fintech seems to be doing quite well, from what I understand, at least in the US.
Yes. So the only reason we have degrown is that our largest customer in this space, which is one of the largest credit bureaus in the world, has opened a captive in India. So we have had to transition some of the work from America to India, and they have taken some of the work in-house. So that is what has hit us in terms of degrowing in that segment.
I see. Okay. And in terms of growth, you obviously made some comments in response to earlier questions. But I'm just curious that are you looking to acquire something which is of substantial nature that can really, get you to some sort of scale? Because being around $50-55 million, especially, I'm not sure if you are being able to bid for a lot of deals also, which are slightly on the larger side. So I'm just curious how, let's say in 2-3 years, forget this year, but in years, where do you see this business to be, both organically plus inorganically?
Okay, so organically, it's important to understand that our target market is companies which have revenues of 100 million to approximately $2 billion or $2.5 billion themselves. So, except for upper end, companies which are $100-150 million in revenue don't have a very formal procurement process. So they will not have a bidding process or an RFP or a procurement organization. So we don't get business through that route. And if you remember from my earlier comment, we stay away from the very large organizations, the Fortune 100s, the Fortune 500 companies, because they tend to be more formal in the procurement process, and we're at a handicap vis-a-vis the large players because of our size. So we don't play that game. So automatically, organically, that makes us that challenges us in terms of growth. Now, as far as inorganic growth is concerned, over the years since 2014, if you would have noticed, every year we have made some payout or the other for acquisitions. But our acquisitions have been more for capability than they have been for revenue. Because we have always been strapped for cash. We have funded it partly through internal accruals and partly through debt. This is the first time when the company is sitting on some cash, and we want to conserve that cash, grow that cash, and do a reasonably large acquisition. And this time we want to do an acquisition for size. So your point is well taken. If you can get an acquisition of a reasonable size, it will leapfrog us into a larger revenue space.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of your competitors, could you just talk about even with your
Mr. Rajesh,
it's not clear.
Sorry to interrupt, sir. Your voice is breaking up. Can you repeat your question once again?
Sure. Is it clear now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So my question was that it seems from your comments that you're in the SMB segment, small and medium businesses, your clients. So could you talk about when you are competing for their businesses, who are you competing? Which are the IT vendors that you compete with?
I can't name any particular company, that really comes to mind. It is such an unpenetrated space. Most of the times we are competing with some local company. Remember that we are only targeting the UK geography and the US geography. So in most of the places we are competing with, a local player, and sometimes, another offshore company. It could be Eastern European company. It doesn't have to be an Indian offshore company. So no particular company comes to mind where we compete.
Okay. Thank you. I'll get back in the queue if I have more questions.
Thanks, Rajesh.
Thank you. Before we take the next question, a reminder to the participants, anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 at this time. The next question is from the line of Vaibhav Barjatia from HNI Investment. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity. So 2-3 questions.
Mr. Barjatia, if you can speak closer to the answer, please. Your voice is not clearly audible.
Yeah. Is it better now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, so if I look at your growth, again, the vertical which is named as other, that has grown a lot. So can you highlight what has driven that growth and what is exactly included in that vertical? Which kind of businesses or which kind of segments are there in that others vertical?
Neeraj, you want to address that?
Yes, I can. So Vaibhav, when you say that it has grown, I think over the years it's been coming slightly down. 2 years back, the others vertical was around 23%. Previous year it came down to 18%, and now it's back at 20%. So there are some customers which don't actually fit within these 5-6 verticals where we operate, but we've been working with them over a period of time. And so it's not good to just drop them like a hot cake. They could be somewhere in the utility space, some in the manufacturing, which particularly don't fit within these 5-6 verticals are the ones which are categorized there. But we don't believe that it will go beyond 20-25%. So the major focus is on our top verticals, which would always be around 75 to 80%, and 20% I would say could be the manufacturing or utility and a residual sector.
Okay, got it. And so you have explained about fintech, actually what has happened in fintech. But similarly for e-commerce and healthcare, for last year it has not done well. The industry as a whole during pandemic has done well. Just wanted to understand what has happened there.
Could you just repeat that question again?
Yeah. So again, if I look at your vertical, which is retail and healthcare, which I think is mostly the e-commerce and healthcare vertical. So that vertical has also degrown a bit. So just wanted to understand what has happened in that. Like you explained in fintech that one of the client has kind of launched its captive in India. That is the reason. For healthcare and retail vertical, what has happened which has led to the degrowth?
See, I don't think you should get hung up on the numbers and the percentage too much. See, because at the end of it, it's 385 crores. It's not.
Right.
It's not TCS, which is very, very large numbers where 1 or 2% makes a big difference. Okay, so these are just metrics which we are tracking, to manage the business. The focus, like I said earlier, is grow revenue, irrespective of where it comes from, these 4 verticals. Okay. Now, if in the process FinTech grows, transportation logistics falls, or healthcare grows and retail e-commerce falls, it's really not something that we are so concerned about, as long as we are growing. For example, if instead of 8% growth we could grow by 25%, I really don't care if healthcare comes down and retail e-commerce goes up. So, I appreciate your question, but actually from a managing the business perspective, it's not so important for us given the challenge of growth.
Got it. Okay, so that's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Amit Jain from Monarch Network Capital. Please go ahead.
Aditya, I was just where we left on the digital front. So obviously, I was not referring to those things which are now be commonly used. So my intent was that typical. So how company different from a typical Indian IT company where the major revenue still comes from application services. So in terms of service mix, so I'm just going through their annual report and the technologies in which you have mentioned about the tech of the strength in all those verticals. So basically, in those terms, I was asking, so where Success is positioned in those terms to face that kind of disruptive technology, which is now almost threatening the whole IT space. That is where I was. That my question was referring to that point.
So is your question why, what is our competitive advantage vis-a-vis other companies in this niche? Is that the question?
Yes. So in terms of those things, because see, I can understand challenges, but at least on the technology front, with the skill set of the employees, where are we positioned with the competition?
It's the analogy would be a specialist versus a generalist. So if I'm an expert in transportation logistics, okay, put it this way. If I was to if I'm prospecting for new business, and I go to a transportation and logistics client, and so does my competition. What will the prospect look at? Prospect will look at capability, he will look at references, and he will look at case studies. Okay? And very importantly, he will look at how much domain knowledge does this company have in my business. Now that's where we are different. We have solution accelerators, we have domain-led solutions, which give us a competitive advantage against our competition because we only focus on these 4 verticals. So if I was to go to a transportation logistics customer, I will tell them that I'm working with the top 25 companies in this space or the top 20 companies in this space. They will be able to relate to all of them because they're competing with them in the market. So they'll know that, okay, this company knows my business. And that's the difference between us and the competition.
Gotcha.
Thank you, Amit.
Thank you so much.
Even anybody else? Even? Did we lose our moderator?
I hope not. That's what I was wondering. Divakar, you there?
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Devraman from Trident Investment Advisors. Please go ahead.
Thank you and good morning. So I've been tracking the company now for a couple of quarters, so not that long, and it strikes me that the growth does seem to underperform what I think the capabilities are. Now, you mentioned that, because your focus area is smaller to mid-market customers, this business, I guess, is often won in one-to-one negotiation. Given that, my sense would be that you would need a larger sales force because you've got to reach out to customers individually. Now, given the focus on growth, why would you not think of compromising margins for a few quarters, but invest in growth upfront, especially since you have cash on the balance sheet, rather than worry about the quarterly number?
So how would we do that, Dave? Give me an idea.
Well, I just think, look, I don't know the problem well enough to recommend a solution, but let's assume that
but take a shot.
Yeah, let's assume the problem is footprint of your customer coverage, right? Because you've got to have that many salespeople reaching out to that many customers in the mid-market space. And what I thought you said was that you are recruiting the sales team in a modular fashion to manage the quarterly number. Now, my submission to you, to borrow a statement you made, is that you're not a TCS. You don't need to worry about that quarterly number that much because your investors, I assume, are not looking at this quarter to quarter. But I think if you actually put that sales effort up front, you will have a margin hit. But I think the revenues will catch up in a couple of quarters. And I think strategically, especially because you're in spaces that seem to have potential for growth, you miss the bus here, you'll miss it.
Okay, first of all, I have to commend you for summarizing the problem statement very well. Okay, you bang on. Because we're in the mid-market segment, we need a bigger footprint. Now, the challenge is twofold. One is the challenge of cost. The second challenge is getting the right sales guy. See, in the last 20 years, may I call you Dave?
Of course.
Yeah. Okay. So in the last 20 years, Dave, the biggest hurdle that I have faced is recruiting successful sales guy. Now, a good sales guy will never leave his company and join a company like ours because he will leave a commission stream, and why would he do that? So what you have available is a bunch of rolling stones, and a rolling stone gathers no moss. He just moves from company to company, puts a topi on every company that hires him and moves on. And we have lost so much money over the years with that. So the problem is not only of cost, the problem is of getting the right sales guy. So what we are doing now is we have said, okay, we will classify our customers or prospects into A, B, C category customers. A category are customers which are very large, which are the target market of the big players. Okay. If we get some business from them, we'll just take it, but they're not our focus. Then there are the C categories, which are companies which are small and don't have sufficient IT budgets to sustain us. So we're not going to touch them. We're only going to target B customers, B category customers, which can give us at least $500,000 of revenue after we get them as customers after at least 2 years. So in 2 years, there should be $500,000 customer. Now, I'm going to target only those. So I've said that what we've decided is that rather than we will keep looking for sales guys, but rather than wait and hire a bunch of sales guys, who will get us nothing, only take us, increase our cost, let us in the meantime only target B category accounts who we can then grow into 500,000. And that's what we're doing. And I'm very confident that with this, we will see some improvement in our growth trajectory.
Yeah, I just, sorry if I may just add a follow on to this.
Sure.
I just think that if you work the math and you say, look, for, acceptable growth at your size, if you're saying I need to add 100 crores a year organically, how many accounts do I need to win, and how many calls would that therefore entail, and how many salespeople would that therefore entail? I understand the challenges of managing salespeople, but what choice is there? But I think that, given the capability set you have and the direction the ship is pointing in, which seems like a very interesting one, finding a way around that challenge is worth the battle in a way, rather than take a kind of conservative view here.
Point taken. We will evaluate in more detail again. It's not that we haven't done it. Maybe we need to look at it a little bit more from an outside-in perspective. So your comment is well taken. We will evaluate again. And if we can, we will do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Sunny Ahuja, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
You're back, Sunny?
I'm sorry. Just one question on the projection for the top line and the bottom line. And I know that can be a little bit difficult, so that's why I'm not going to stretch it too far, say 5 years or so. But say within the next couple of years, what kind of growth projections do we have in terms of our top line and our bottom line?
Neeraj, can I request you?
Sunny, unfortunately, we don't give guidance, and we've not started giving guidance, but definitely, we are looking to make our growth better than what has been in the past. And in terms of profitability or margins, you've been seeing that they have been improving constantly. We are focusing on ensuring costs are effective, and at the same time, trying to see what we can focus from an offshore on-site revenue mix perspective. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but definitely looking at growth which can better what we have done in the past, and try and have ways and mechanisms of improving our margins.
I get some sort of an idea from what you told me. Also, just one more thing, because, as you said, these digital technologies, they entail a lot of different verticals. So, any one or two, areas where you feel that, the company can really capitalize on over the next few years, and where you foresee, a good part of the revenue growth coming in from some specific sectors within this digital, framework?
Sunny, the biggest market for IT is the US. And in the US, we are strongest in transportation logistics. So today we work with, literally the who's who of transportation logistics. And we have done some really cutting edge and critical applications for our customers. If I was to bank on one vertical, I would say it'd be transportation logistics. We all know, because of the pandemic, we have seen how it has grown, and how that has impacted the logistics business. So I would say, to answer your question, it's that sector.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of PP Rajesh from Banyan Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Just a follow-up question. How many total customers we have? And secondly, how many salespeople do we have?
Neeraj, you want to address that?
Sure, Arvind. So our number of customers, the ones with whom we work regularly, they are at least in the 70 to 75 number, which we would pick on a constant basis, with whom we keep getting revenues regularly. And your second question, sorry, I didn't get that, Rajesh. What was the second question, please?
Yeah. Second question was, how many salespeople you have?
So salespeople, we have a large sales team, which we have split between what we call as a on-site, which is feet on the ground in the respective geographies, and then they are well supported with a large inside sales team and a marketing team. So in all put together, our sales and marketing engine is at least 65 to 70 people is what we would say.
And people who are actually in the geographic regions, that would be what, 20, 30 people, I assume?
The one on-site, they would at least be 15 to 17 people between the three geographies.
Right. So yeah, I guess I was just listening to the earlier participant's question, and it seems that, that's probably one area where you need to invest to grow faster. If logistics is your strong area, then, getting 10% from that seems to be less than optimal. And again, I'm sorry, I'm just sharing some thoughts as I'm listening to your comments on this call for the first time, but it seems that you probably need more salespeople in the areas where you are stronger, which can perhaps turbocharge your growth, or maybe you look for an acquisition in that particular segment to really bolster your revenue growth. Just a comment.
Point taken. Thank you, Rajesh.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Vaibhav Barjatia from HNI Investment. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the follow-up. So have you looked at the cloud implementations as an opportunity? Like there's been a lot of traction on HANA platform of SAP and Oracle Cloud platforms. So have you looked at those opportunities, or because I think cloud is being adopted by smaller clients nowadays because of the cost efficiency. So just wanted to understand, are you doing this kind of work or not yet?
Most of our work, Vaibhav, is on the cloud. I mean, when we talk digital, I don't know of any digital solution which is not on the cloud today. So, and it is mainly Amazon or Microsoft Azure. It is not HANA and Oracle.
Okay, so it's not kind of system is it's not kind of cloud platforms of these Oracle or SAP. It's not that. It's you are more towards providing other services on cloud.
Yeah, most of our customers want to either use their applications on the cloud. So if they're building a new application, it will be on the cloud. Or if they have an application, they will migrate it to the cloud. I think the days of on-premise servers and on-premise applications are slowly disappearing. So Oracle, for example, used to be either on-premise or on the cloud. So if a customer wants to move his Oracle application to the cloud, that is not something that we would do. Okay, but if he wants to build a new application on the cloud, we would do that.
Got it. Okay, sir. Thank you. That's it from my side.
Thank you.
Thank you. As there are no further questions, I would now like to hand the conference over to Ms. Now for closing comments. Over to you, sir.
It's been a real pleasure, talking to all of you, and thank you for taking so much interest in the working of the company and understanding its functioning and its dynamics. I appreciate some of the inputs, especially around sales and what we should consider to accelerate growth. And rest assured, if there is one thing that's keeping me awake and my senior team like Neeraj and his colleagues awake at night, it is how can we accelerate growth. And I'm hopeful that this year, we would have some better news for you in the coming months in terms of growth. So with that, thank you very much for participating. Take care of yourselves. Best wishes to all of you and your families. Stay well, stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Saxoft Limited, that concludes this conference. We thank you all for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.